Do you know someone who's always complaining? Someone who turns even the smallest problem into a tragedy, constantly saying how the world is against them? They're always the victim, no matter the situation. And what happens to you? You start to feel bad and guilty, right? Without even realizing it, you end up giving in and helping them every time. Let me explain why. Somehow this guilt was planted in your mind and is now growing like a seed. The goal of this person is clear: to make you feel guilt, empathy, and even pity, leaving you with the sense that it's your duty to help them, as if it's an obligation. Strategic victimhood. That's the name of this manipulation tactic. It's incredibly effective because it plays on your sense of compassion, and the manipulator knows this and uses it to get everything they want without having to put in much effort, maintaining emotional control of the situation. And believe me, it works 99% of the time. Be careful, as this often becomes a vicious cycle. Each time you give in to strategic victimhood, the manipulator gets more skilled. They realize that this tactic works, that it triggers your compassion, and that it always puts them in a position of emotional advantage. And you? You're stuck in a cycle of trying to help but never feeling like it's enough. Have you ever been manipulated by strategic victimhood? Let me know in the comments below. This was just the first sign. In this video, you'll learn about 8 other subtle yet powerful tactics that manipulators use to control people without them even realizing it. These signs might seem harmless at first, but together they can quietly take over your thoughts, decisions, and even your emotions. Stay tuned, because these insights might just change how you view certain relationships in your life. Second sign: it's your fault. That relative who, whenever you refuse to help them, brings up a mistake you made in the past. They might say something like, "You know, after what happened, I never expected this from you." Or, "After everything I did for you, this is how you treat me?" This constant manipulation through guilt creates psychological pressure, causing the victim to give in, even when it goes against their own desires or priorities. Guilt is one of the most powerful tools of manipulation. Manipulators use it to create a sense of obligation in the other person, pushing them to act in a way that relieves this uncomfortable feeling. The victim starts to feel the need to make up for something, even when the guilt is not justified or is disproportionate to the situation. Take control. If you know you're not at fault, ask directly, "Why are you doing this? Are you trying to manipulate me?" This approach confronts the manipulation attempt clearly, forcing the manipulator to handle the situation in a more open and less deceptive way. This simple question can help immediately identify when guilt is being used as a tool of control. People who use guilt as a manipulation strategy often suffer from emotional dependency. They tend to rely on guilt as their main weapon of control, as it is an effective way to get what they want without having to deal with direct confrontations or rational arguments. Third sign: social isolation. Social isolation is a subtle but powerful manipulation tactic. The manipulator tries to distance the victim from their support networks, such as friends, family, or colleagues, creating a stronger emotional dependence. By depriving the victim of external opinions and emotional support, the manipulator gains greater control over their actions and decisions, as the victim has fewer sources of support. Imagine a romantic relationship where, gradually, the partner begins to discredit the victim's friends, saying things like, "I don't think that person is a good influence on you," or "They only reach out when they need something from you." Initially, these might seem like genuine concerns, but over time, the isolation intensifies. The victim finds themselves increasingly distanced from important people, which weakens their critical thinking and increases emotional dependence on the manipulator. Have you ever known someone who started a relationship and suddenly stopped interacting with their circle of friends? Think about that. Recognizing this pattern is the first step to breaking the cycle of isolation, and you may even be able to help someone who's experiencing it. Here's an intriguing fact. Research indicates that when people are isolated from their support networks, they become more susceptible to accepting ideas and behaviors they would normally reject, as isolation weakens critical thinking, creating a more conducive environment for control and manipulation. Unfortunately, this type of manipulation remains common in relationships today, with most victims being women, who often face a more challenging cycle of emotional control to break. Fourth sign, gaslighting. Gaslighting is a manipulation technique where the manipulator subtly distorts the person's perception of reality. This can happen when someone denies that an event occurred or minimizes the other person's experiences, making them question their own memories or feelings. The goal is to create mild confusion, leading the person to rely more on the manipulator's perceptions rather than their own. Gaslighting is not exclusive to romantic or family relationships. It can also appear in everyday conversations. For example, when someone says, "You're overreacting, it wasn't that bad," or "I'm sure you're remembering it wrong." These phrases may seem harmless, but when used repeatedly, they can make a person question their memory or interpretation of daily situations. Fun fact: the term gaslighting was popularized by a classic 1940s film called Gaslight, where a character makes small changes to the environment, like adjusting the lighting while denying any alterations. This technique is used to illustrate how small distortions of reality can influence another person's perception. So, how can you tell if someone is using this manipulation technique on you? If you find yourself in doubt, ask yourself, is my memory clear? Is this really my perception? If the answer is no, it's a clear sign that you might be experiencing manipulation through gaslighting, designed to confuse your thoughts. Have you heard about the gaslighting technique before? Fifth sign, help with hidden motives. Imagine a coworker spontaneously offers to help with a complicated task, even though you didn't ask for it. At first, it seems like a genuine act of solidarity. However, right after the work is done, they start mentioning favors they need, saying things like, "Remember when I helped you with that presentation? Could you cover my shift tomorrow?" Or they might emphasize how generous they were in helping, trying to reinforce an emotional debt. "I really went out of my way to help you that time, so it would only be fair for you to help me now." This sign of manipulation is subtle but very common. The manipulator offers help generously, creating the impression of being altruistic and caring. However, this help comes with hidden motives, as the true goal is to get something in return. The manipulator uses the act of helping to create an emotional debt, expecting the person to feel obligated to reciprocate in some way. The initial sense of gratitude is quickly replaced by a feeling of duty, giving the manipulator more control over the situation. Remember, true help doesn't come with demands, expectations, or pressure to reciprocate. Genuine help is offered with an open heart, expecting nothing in return, leaving the other person free to accept or decline without creating a sense of debt. If someone constantly reminds you of what they did for you or uses phrases like, "I did this for you, now it's your turn," or "I expected more gratitude," it's a clear sign that the support may have come with a hidden price. If the help ends up creating an emotional burden or pressure to immediately give something in return, that's a typical example of help with hidden motives. Sixth sign, bad joke. Everyone knows that friend who always has those jokes disguised as banter. The manipulator uses humor as a weapon to belittle or ridicule the other person, but does it in a way that seems like just a harmless joke. Sarcastic or ironic comments are made to appear friendly, but are actually intended to attack the person's self-esteem or credibility. To make matters worse, if the person reacts negatively, the manipulator quickly responds with phrases like, "Wow, you have no sense of humor," or "Relax, it was just a joke." This causes the person to start doubting whether they are overreacting or if they were truly the target of a disguised attack. This type of manipulation is often used by people who struggle to express criticism directly or who want to maintain a position of control in a subtle way. Often, the manipulator is someone who doesn't want to be seen as aggressive or authoritarian, so they use humor to mask their true objective, to weaken the other person's confidence almost imperceptibly. This strategy is common in workplaces, friend groups, and even family relationships, where the manipulator tries to maintain their influence while appearing to be just having fun. Did you know that approximately 31% of people in the United States have reported experiencing manipulation through comments disguised as jokes, according to a study by the American Psychological Association? Interestingly, most victims don't immediately realize they're being manipulated, as humor is one of the most subtle techniques for masking control. Seventh sign, false concern. Concern may seem like a sign of care or affection, but when used manipulatively, it becomes a powerful tool of control. The manipulator expresses false concern to weaken the person's self-confidence, making them feel fragile, insecure, or even incompetent. This concern doesn't come to support or strengthen, but rather to create a sense of vulnerability, encouraging the person to doubt their own abilities. In doing so, the manipulator maintains a role as the protector, reinforcing the other's emotional dependence. This form of manipulation is often found in family, romantic, and even work relationships. The manipulative person avoids appearing aggressive, opting instead to use caring words and phrases of concern to mask their true intentions. But the goal is clear: to keep the other in a constant state of doubt about their abilities and choices, while the manipulator assumes the role of someone who knows what's best for you. This type of manipulation is so subtle that it often goes unnoticed, as concern is generally seen as a positive emotion. Interestingly, most people being manipulated in this way don't realize it until they start feeling constantly anxious or dependent on the protector. Eighth sign: the unsolicited feedback. You know that completely spontaneous feedback? It appears suddenly without you asking, but is presented as if it's an indispensable help. The manipulator offers criticism disguised as useful suggestions or sincere advice, but the real goal is different: to create insecurity, destabilize, and undermine the person's confidence. Even though the manipulator may seem like they're just trying to help with feedback, the intention behind the words is clear: to make the person doubt their skills and decisions, leaving them more vulnerable and reliant on external validation to move forward. This technique is very common in professional environments, especially where there are many colleagues who always seem to have an opinion or feedback about your work. The manipulator often uses phrases like, "Don't take this the wrong way, it's just positive feedback, but I think you could have done it differently." Or, "I'm only giving you this feedback to help you." The tone appears to be one of care, but the real effect is to destabilize the person's confidence, creating doubt and hesitation, making you question yourself. Maybe I'm really not that good at this. This form of manipulation is often perceived as a simple opinion, but when it comes from someone with hidden motives, the impact can be deeper than it seems, especially in the workplace, where it can make you question whether you truly belong there. Receiving unsolicited criticism from someone who barely knows you is unsettling, and in this case, the manipulator has certainly achieved their goal of demotivating you. Ninth sign: disguised compliment. You weren't expecting this one, were you? You know that friend who always starts a conversation with a sincere compliment like, "Wow, you always have the best taste in clothes," and then follows up with, "By the way, could I borrow that jacket I love?" Or that coworker who says, "You're the best at solving problems here in the office," and immediately asks you to help solve their problem because only you can do it perfectly. In both cases, the compliment is just baited to make the request harder to refuse, taking advantage of the initial positive feeling to get what they want. This is one of the sneakiest, and perhaps the most common forms of manipulation, because it's disguised as something everyone loves to hear: a compliment. But beware. The manipulator uses the compliment strategically, not to genuinely uplift the person, but to pave the way for a request. The idea is simple: boost the person's self-esteem at the right moment, creating a more favorable environment to get what they want. The manipulator knows that the person will be more inclined to say yes, while still enjoying the positive effect of the compliment. So how can you tell if a compliment is genuine? If you notice that compliments frequently come with a request, try pausing before responding, and this time say no to the request. This will quickly reveal the manipulator's true intentions, as their reaction is likely to change immediately. The friendly tone may shift to disappointment, or even irritation. Try this test and let me know in the comments. You'll see how easy it is to spot a manipulative compliment. Silent manipulation is so subtle that we often only notice its effects when we're already caught in a psychological game that impacts our emotions, decisions, and relationships. It might be that comment disguised as advice, guilt masked as care, or even silence used as punishment. These signs hide in gestures and words, making them hard to detect. Now that you know the 9 signs of silent manipulation, you're better equipped to recognize and respond to them. From strategic victimhood to disguised compliments, each tactic uses psychological techniques to influence you subtly. And most importantly, these behaviors can appear anywhere: at work, at home, or even among friends. But from this video forward, you now have the knowledge needed to break this cycle and reclaim your personal power. Remember, you have the right to set boundaries, say no when something doesn't feel right, and not feel guilty for prioritizing your well-being. Manipulation only works when we don't know it's happening, but now that you're aware, you're one step ahead. If you've noticed any of these signs in your daily interactions, now is the time to act. The sooner you identify these behaviors, the easier it will be to maintain emotional clarity and confidence in your decisions. Don't blame yourself for not noticing it before. Manipulation is designed to be subtle and deceptive. What matters is that now you know how to respond more assertively, protecting yourself from emotional traps. Moreover, remember that knowledge of silent manipulation can be used not only to protect yourself, but also to help those around you. You can become a positive influence, alerting friends, family, and coworkers when you notice these behaviors in action. Together, we can create a healthier, more transparent environment where respect and empathy are stronger than disguised control. So let's make a deal. From now on, whenever you sense something odd or suspect manipulation, don't hesitate to act. Use the tips you've learned here to analyze the situation and make a conscious decision. And if you have any questions or want to share more stories about this topic, leave a comment. Your participation can be essential in helping more people understand human behavior and its signals. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications. Let's understand human behavior and its signs together, becoming more aware and protected. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next video.